This is for Laurie Hardy. She taught me so much about both editing and words that we try to avoid in a podcast environment. Having come from radio, she's got that experience, decades of experience in how to speak in such a way that can be informative and can communicate the sometimes heartfelt messages that we strive for here on this podcast. So I just want to give her a big shout out from my perspective. She's helped me through a lot of other things too, that she went above and beyond and didn't have to really touch on the more personal issues that I was going through at the time. So she's been a huge help both in the podcast and just a great person in general. I recommend you utilize her if you're interested in starting a podcast of your own.
Hi, I'm Laurie Hardy, and I help business owners go from frustration to ease when it comes to podcasting. If you're looking to boost your credibility and grow your business but feel overwhelmed by the process, I've got you covered. With over 30 years of experience in top radio markets, I know how to make your voice heard. My 7-day Podcast Pro program helps you move from scattered and unsure to confidently launching and maintaining a podcast that connects with your audience, builds your legacy. It's done with ease and minimal time. Plus, I'll share insider tips to help you rank in the top 5%. A trigger warning for this episode talks about CSA as well as suicide, so take care while you listen.
I was sexually abused at 15 by a so-called Christian. My life was spiraling out of control. My drug of choice was lying. I didn't like me, so there's no way you could like me, so I created an image I thought people would like, through the lies. I lied so much you had to catch me telling the truth.
Has your life, your dreams been interrupted? Good news. It is possible to reinvent our lives. People are doing it every day, and some are brave enough to share the struggles, disappointments, and challenges. If you are looking for a new beginning, a do-over, or to rediscover your passion, maybe even find a new one, then grab a cup of coffee and let's talk. Interrupted, Act 2, Reinventing Your Legacy, with your host, Coach Laurie.
Dean Sikes is the author of You Matter, and his website is youmatter.us. And welcome.
Oh, I'm glad to be here. Thanks so much.
We're so glad to have you. Now, we always start with what you're doing now and how you're helping people. So tell us about your book and your organization, You Matter.
Yeah. Since January 1st, 1993, I have been on the road speaking in high schools. So that as of today's date, that's 33 years, 10 months, and 21 days ago. Just spoken with over 2.5 million students, over 4,300 events, shared our message of hope literally around the world. Written 33 books. This latest one is, I think, the legacy book of our outreach called You Matter, Finding Hope and Meaning in Everyday Life. In it, I kind of unpack why you matter from my perspective. And every week we're somewhere sharing this message, and it's something that I just have a real passion to do.
So what brought you to this kind of work?
I was in real estate development at 21 years old. And then I was going into politics, I thought, and I was going to run for the state legislature of Tennessee, be in the U.S. Congress, be a U.S. senator, then be governor of Tennessee. And that was kind of my trajectory. But it wasn't the plan that I was supposed to follow. Through a set of circumstances, I had grown up in church, been in church every time the doors were open, had gone to great schools, had a good community, a friend base, but just really had an encounter one day when I was 21 years old in that real estate development office. I'd prayed a very simple prayer 2 weeks earlier. It was like, God, if you're real, prove it. I don't think you are. I've been in church my whole life. I've gone to Christian schools. All my friends are Christians. I was sexually abused at 15 by a so-called Christian. My life was spiraling out of control. My drug of choice was lying. I didn't like me, so there's no way you could like me. So I created an image I thought people would like, through the lies. I lied so much you had to catch me telling the truth, that kind of lifestyle. I prayed that very simple prayer. If you're real, prove it. 2 weeks later, I'm sitting in my office, had forgotten I'd prayed that prayer. I'm literally sitting in my office dialing a phone, and off behind me to my left, I heard someone audibly say, "Call mom." I swung around in my chair, saw no one, but the hair on the back of my ear knew to call my mom. And when I called my mom, in that instant, she was attempting suicide. She was not, I could hear the life leaving her body. I'm convinced God spoke to me. And I drove to my parents' home, and from the outside in, their home looked fine. It was safe, secure, probably like where we live, but from the inside out, my mom was dying. I've spoken literally with multiplied millions of people at live events. And from the outside in, they appear to have it all together. But from the inside out, they're in their own private wars. That day, as I drove my mother to a hospital, she says, "Dean, I can't be dying." I said, "Mom, you're not going to die, but you're going to have to choose to live." The most important word in that sentence is not live, it's choose. Choose you this day who you will serve. Got her to a hospital. Doctors began to work with her. My dad's there now. Family and friends have arrived. 45 minutes later, this doctor who had 4 years of college, 4 years of med school, 2 years of residency, and years practicing medicine walked over to my dad. I'll never forget this. And he said, Mr. Sikes, there is no medical reason to tell you what I'm getting ready to tell you. It's a, quote, miracle of God. And my ears perked. He said, your wife's fine. She's alive. You can go see her. We're going to release her here in a couple of hours. I heard that sentence and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. You're real? That day, everything changed. I call it defining moments. And shortly thereafter, doors began to open. And then suddenly I was a speaker. And then suddenly I was bouncing around the globe.
That's amazing. I'm a life coach, and we hear this all the time. It's when we make that decision, when we make the choice, or like you said, you believed, you decided, and then doors open. Can you talk about that? Like, how did doors open? What happened?
Yeah, and when I started this outreach, I had two mandates. One, I would always speak with teenagers in schools and conventions. And two, I would never charge a high school or a student any money. I would freely go, freely give. In the mornings, in those first years, when it was just me, I would get up in the morning, I would roll out of bed, and I would have a 6-foot long table. And on that table, there was at that point, a 2-line fax machine, a telephone with 2 lines, a computer, a big computer, and a printer. In the mornings, I would call high school principals. Hi, my name is Dean. This is my story. I'm going to see 100,000 students this year. I'm not going to charge you anything. May I come speak at your school? Yes. In the afternoons, I would call businessmen and women and go, hi, my name is Dean. Here's my story. This year, I'm going to speak with 100,000 students, but I'm not charging. Would you like to help? Yes. So in the first decade, I saw 1 million students in 10 years. Now, all these years later, decades later, millions of students, thousands of events. Our organization is debt-free, and I've never charged anyone anything.
That's amazing. Did that idea just come to you to
Well, it's based on a scripture in the Bible that says, Matthew 10:8, freely you've received, freely give. When I saw that, I knew that was my mandate. Not everybody's called to do it that way, but for me, I never want money to dictate where I go. When I stand up in front of students, I can say to them very honestly, your school is not paying me. I'm not here for a check. I'm here because I care.
But what made you decide to, I mean, how did you think, I'm going to call businesses and ask them to support this?
Well, I didn't have the money to do it, and schools didn't have the money to do it. There's only one option, business people. And so we built this bridge, if you will, between people who liked our message and who wanted me to get it to this generation. And they love the thought that I'm not charging. It kind of speaks to motivation.
I love that model. And I think, often when I think about sales or, when we're working, trying to be an entrepreneur, sometimes it's really hard to think of ideas of ways to get our message out, but also get the support we need. And I love it that you're just so nonchalant. Well, of course, I called other business people. Like, it was no big deal.
I'm a big believer that when you're pursuing God's vision for your life, the provision will always be there. Not everybody agrees with me, but that's okay. I don't have to be right. They don't have to be right. It works for me.
So when you look back at being able to share your story and your impact, has it shifted over the years?
Yeah. One of the biggest shifts for us has been the advent of social media. We've had a television outreach for a long time, but social media we started in earnest about 27 months ago. And we were behind the curve, but in the last 27 months, we've had 168 million views of our videos on social media. Every school that I go into, no matter where I am in the country, teenagers walk up to me and they go, I watch you on TikTok. In fact, just before coming on with you, I just finished an hour-long conversation with our entire social media team, laying out the strategy for the next 90 days as to how we're going to do it, what we're going to do, what the messaging is. Because if you're going to reach this generation, you're not going to do it on television. You'll do it on social media.
Yeah, that's interesting. I work in radio, and as much as I love it, it's, it is a good thing locally, especially, but really where we're going to reach people is through podcasts and social media. And
think of it this way, in 33 years, I've reached 2.5 million students, right? In 27 months, I've reached 168 million.
That's incredible.
Kind of basic.
Yeah, that's incredible. So what is your message? I know you told us your story about your mom, but we all know teen suicide is on the rise.
Yeah, every day in America, 5,600 students attempt to end their life. In an arena that seats 12,000 people, that arena would fill up every 2.5 days with teenagers who, in the previous 60 hours, bought the lie that their life didn't matter. Our message is a message of hope. It's a message that shares with young people that irrespective of what you have done, irrespective of how much pain you may be in, If you're breathing, it's because you're breathing on purpose. And you were created, in my view, on purpose, with purpose, and for purpose. And so we've kind of unpacked from stage stories. I always share my story, the what if. What if I had not called my mom? Well, the doctors were very clear she would have died. It was that close. Interestingly, my mom went back to school after that episode in her life, became a counselor, and for the next 30 years helped people come through what she came through before she died about 5 years ago. My point is, what you and I overcome in life most probably will become our platform. Having been sexually abused at 15, I made a vow, I'll never tell anybody what happened to me. And for 22 years, I never did. And I tell students that if you don't deal with your emotions will surely deal with you. They're not going away. They don't just magically disappear. 22 years later, married to two of our three kids, walked into a Home Depot, which is, if we knew each other, you'd be laughing hysterically because I'm not a fixer-upper person. But I walked into Home Depot, walked down aisle 21, turned right, and turned right into the person who 22 years earlier had sexually abused me. And my life unraveled. I went home, my wife said, "What is wrong?" I said, "Not right now." And later that night, I took her outside after we'd put our kids to bed, and I said, "I'm gonna tell you something. I've never had the guts to tell anybody. 22 years ago, I was sexually abused, and tonight I ran into the person." Her eyes filled with tears. She took 2 steps backward. She says, "Dean, everything makes sense now. We've got to get you some help." I said, "No, I'm good." She goes, No, you're not good." My initial refusal for help was rooted in fear and pride. After I kind of had some moments where I knew I needed some help, I went and found the right counselor, Christian counselor he knew what we did in life. He said, "I'm not interested in your outreach. I'm not interested in your ministry. I don't want to hear about your results. I'm interested in you." And that was new because, in this world, basically, you understand. That conversation lasted 11 years. And somewhere in those 11 years, I was asked this question. And the question you asked was my messaging. This is what I share from stage. I said, I was asked this question: will you forgive the person who hurt you? My immediate response was no. I said, "Why?" I said, "It's not fair. I did nothing wrong." And they asked a question that kind of stung the air, and I paused and I waited and I said, "I'll get back with you." And here's the reality. I did forgive. I didn't go to the person. I just did I forgave how I was led to forgive. I would love to tell you that massive change happened immediately, but I felt no different whatsoever. But about 2 or 3 months later, one morning I woke up and what I had been told months earlier actually happened. And here's what I was told. When we forgive, we get free. And I got free. And the person who sexually abused me when I was 15 years old could walk into a convention center where I'm speaking, walk down to the front, sit on the front row right in front of me. It would not faze me in the least. Because when you're truly free, you're free. And I'm living the reality that what you overcome becomes your platform.
Thank you for sharing that. I know that it's difficult, and I have another podcast that we do about this subject. And what we've learned a lot from doing it is usually the average is 26 years it takes before somebody can tell. And what you said is what we hear, especially from men, is "I'm never telling anybody." And sometimes it's because you're threatened. Sometimes it's just because it's so awful. And so, we hear this in recovery from drugs and alcohol. Our secrets keep us sick. And like you said, "No, I'm good." We hear that too. People are like, "Yeah, well, now that I know what it was, and I've spoken it, I'm fine." But getting help and getting support and realizing, your life matters, and really realizing it's not your fault is
Yep,
huge.
it is. I was recently speaking at an event, and it doesn't matter where I was in the U.S. A young man walked up to me, and he was probably in his late 20s and was shaking, tears coming down because I had just shared, that story with a bunch of teenagers, but he was there. He just needed somebody to listen to him. And here's what I share with parents. It's not that your teenager wants to talk with you. It's that they desperately need to be seen and heard. Because if you don't feel seen or heard, you will by default begin to buy the lie that your life does not matter. And that leads you to a very dark place expeditiously. So taking the time to listen to someone, to see where they are in life. Not that I have all the answers, but I have a pretty good idea of where to get some of them.
I love that. We hear things like, my son, when he was in high school, one of his best friends took his life, died by suicide. So many kids, I mean, they're high schoolers. They asked him, "Did you know?" And that was so devastating to him because he didn't know. And
Right.
then he lived for, years. I think he still struggles with thinking, maybe I should have, maybe I could have saved his life, maybe. And so what would you say to that?
I've talked to a lot of people who have experienced loss. In fact, I just got a text just yesterday from a parent who had recently lost someone in their life to suicide. And the number one thing they deal with is Why did we miss it? Did we miss a sign? Did we miss somebody crying out for help? And suicide is, in my view, the fastest death on the planet today. It happens very fast. I talked with hundreds and hundreds of students who've attempted it, and they all kind of paint the same picture that they're alone. They have this, what they would call this dark, evil, ominous cloud coming into their mind. They hear the wrong voice. They make the wrong choice. Suicide typically, I've learned, is built in threes. A person will oftentimes think about it, talk about it, then attempt it. So if somebody watching today is thinking about it, you could be 1/3 of the way there. Talking about it with somebody, now's the time to reach out for help. For those who are left behind, the questions are unanswered. And that's the miserable part that's the brutal part of this sickness. And that's what it is. It's a sickness. People who attempt suicide are not bad people. They're in bad places. And they've experienced real pain. And what does pain do but seek pleasure? Hurting people, we know, hurt people. And oftentimes the people we hurt are ourselves. My question to people is, I believe there's a real God, there's a real devil. I believe the God that I serve is good, the devil who's against me is bad. So what does that enemy know about you that he's trying so hard to take you out? He's never told the truth. He's not going to start with you. One of the analogies I share with students is if you have a trash can, I bring it on stage with me, we fill that trash can up with garbage. We just keep pushing the trash down, and we keep pushing it down and keep pushing it down, and we never take time to empty that. There will be an eruption, an overflow of the trash. Your heart's no different. If you keep pushing down the pain, keep pushing down the experiences, keep pushing down trauma, and what is trauma but what happened to us that should have never happened, but trauma is also what did not happen that should have happened. If you keep pushing that down and you don't deal with it, eventually there is an eruption of the heart. That's a bad day. I got that t-shirt. I know what that one feels like. That's why I can say with confidence, if you don't deal with your emotions, they will deal with you.
That's so good. Do you feel like all the years you've been working with students, like what I'm recognizing is we interviewed a young man who was in his 20s and he had been abused and he was at he was serving like meal at some sort of Christian church event. And he decided, I don't know why, but I shared with one person what happened to me. And they responded in such a acceptance way, I believe you,
Yep.
that he was able to then start telling the story. He told it on our podcast. And he said, we told him most people wait too long, but it seems like maybe there's a new generation that are feeling more able to talk about it. I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah, I think that one of the greatest verses I've ever read says open communication permits progress. One of the things that we do in talking with so many students is encourage them to, what you shine light on, you begin to win that battle, because once recognition happens, that's half the battle in and of itself. If you can shine the light on, and light being the truth of what happened to you, and you're not embarrassed by it, you're not ashamed of it. Because when I got sexually abused and I looked in the mirror that night, I saw someone who was full of shame and who was broken, who was really, I had this massive conviction in my heart, like I'd really messed up, even though I'd done nothing wrong. That's to a 15-year-old naive kid, that's all I knew. My default was, well, I'll just bury this. And so what happens when you bury it? You become the antithesis of who you are. So I was this very kind of shy, suddenly I became very bold, very arrogant, very lying, like there was no tomorrow. I was dating all these great looking older girls. I was the editor of the school newspaper. I was the president of the pep club. I was stage managing all the productions. I was involved in everything. I had become one of the most popular guys around. And I would go home every day going, they're going to find out tomorrow. And I lived that for years.
Man, that's hard to live with.
Yeah, nothing easy about it.
Wow. I'm just letting that sink in. That's so powerful. I love what you do. I love that you're having these conversations. And I know that some of the work we do is we probably, audience is a lot older, as we say, if somebody comes to you, say, I believe you. And if you can't handle it, say, I'm happy to help you find someone to talk to, but that we always go to, I believe you, because a lot of people, especially our older generation, would go to parents, family, and they weren't believed, or they were told this is what happens, just stuff it.
I was speaking in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania one night, and there was, I would learn later, a 77-year-old lady in that audience. And when I came off stage, she walked over to me, kind of off to the side of the stage, touched my elbow. I turned, I looked down. She was a sweet little lady. She goes, I need to talk to you. I said, all right. She said, that thing that happened to you when you were 15? I said, yes, ma'am. She goes, it happened to me when I was 15. You're the first person I've ever told. 62 years of compounding emotional interest was staring me in the face. I said, can I ask you why you told me? She says, I just felt like you'd understand, and plus you're leaving. I said, yeah, that's always the answer. I'm the safest guy anybody will ever talk to because in 30 minutes I'm gone. I'm on to the next city to do it again. But I always try to take the time. If a young person especially has the courage to come talk, I'm going to take the time to listen. And that's what I would encourage your viewers to do is you don't have to have the answers. Just listen.
Yeah.
I love the I believe you moment. I mean, that's a big deal
Yeah.
because being believed gives gasoline, gives fuel to an already started engine of, okay, because to come up to somebody and say, I want to tell you what happened to me, takes an unimaginable amount of guts. The courage to do that is off any chart. But the necessity in doing so is there likewise because people come to the end of their ability to handle it in and of themselves. We were never built to be lone rangers. We were created to have community and to engage and to be part of something bigger than ourselves.
I remember the first time I told somebody about my childhood abuse. It was a very dear friend. And I don't even know why. I don't even know how it came up, but I felt so relieved. But then I was absolutely terrified. I went
Petrified.
home. It was before cell phones or internet. And I must have called her 20 times. I'm like, you're not going to tell anyone, are you? Because it was a small town and everybody knew
Sure.
my family. And and then I didn't remember this, but later she told me, she goes, that I went blank. I did not answer her phone calls. I didn't talk to her. And I eventually then went to counseling because I'd never even gone to counseling for that. But the fact that she listened and believed me and then promised me 400,000 times she wouldn't tell anyone
Yep.
gave me the courage then to go get some counseling. And it's actually her husband that I do the podcast with. I just remember this big weight being lifted off and then the terror of, oh my gosh, I've told this secret. And I don't know, I thought maybe I was going to die. I don't know.
No, it's real. I remember sitting with a mom of a grown adult who had shared a part of his life that she did not want anyone to know. And I looked at her, I said, you're ashamed of your son. That's the problem. I'm very bold in what I do. And
Good for you.
so she wasn't expecting that response from me. And it shook her. And she broke. She said, I am. I said, well, there's your problem. You may not agree with him and his choices, but he's your son. And as a result, love never fails. You got some loving to do.
Yeah.
And I share that only to say that there are a lot of people out there who are so afraid that their secret is going to get out that when they do finally open up, it's not because they necessarily want to. They see no other choice. Either I open up or this is going to implode, and implosion is not good. When someone opens up to you, they trust you enough for you to be, even if you don't have the answers. I can't tell you how many times I've told a student, I don't know the answer to what you're asking me. Let me see if I can help you find an answer. I would much rather say, I don't know, than give them some answer that doesn't even ring true on any part of the hemisphere, and they walk away confused. That doesn't help anybody. So I don't know is not a bad answer, in my view. So when someone says to me, what can I do? If you don't know the answer, go, I'm not sure, but let's figure it out.
I love that because I do think that sometimes people feel like, oh my gosh, I've been given this big secret. I have to fix it. And I love the permission to go, I'm not sure, but let's figure it out. In our community here down the road, there was a high school, a bunch of boys that had been abused by their coach, and they were all afraid to do anything, but one boy came forward and then the rest did. And they went through the court system. Their parents were very supportive. And I just have so much respect for them because that's a hard thing to admit.
Oh,
And and sometimes if it's somebody like a coach or whatever, there's mixed up feelings that, make it even more difficult. So I love that we're talking about this, and I love that you're brave enough to go to schools and talk about these hard conversations.
my calling, and I share with students, I'm not here to talk to you. I'm going to talk with you, and I'm not going to talk with you as teenagers. Because if I could talk you into something today, somebody a lot better than me could talk you out of it tomorrow. I'm just going to offer you what I believe is truth. I'm going to offer you some of my life experiences and share some things I've learned along the way. And let's see if any of those shared moments have an impact on your life. Then I make the book available and we go on and do it again somewhere else.
Wow. Dean, this has been so great. Where can people get your book, You Matter?
Yeah, youmatterbook.us is one way you can get it. Just youmatterbook.us. It's on Amazon. You can get it there. And then youmatter.us is our website for all other, just everything you want to know about what we do in life.
And you say you have a podcast coming up.
Called the You Matter Podcast. It'll be on all platforms. And we're just kind of, we're like everything else we've done, we're diligently disciplined, making very concrete sure that every step is covered and all the bases are covered before we actually launch it.
Oh, and is your book on tape?
Yes, there's an audiobook out there.
So one other thing that we learned, we interviewed this lawyer, and he said one of the things he's discovered, because he helps people, so if they come out later in life, of course, they can't do anything about their abuse because statute of limitations. But he says, if people will go report anyway, then at least there's a documentation. But this is what he said that blew me away. He said, so many parents will say, man, if anybody ever touches my kid or anyone ever hurts my kid, I'll kill him, I'll go to jail. And although that sounds really awesome, if the child is abused by someone in the family, a sibling or an uncle, they're like, my mom or my dad is going to kill them because they believe it. And so then they don't tell. Have you come up against wording like that?
We've had a lot of students who've had really bad experiences as a result of family, extended family typically. My go-to is always, let's find somebody that you trust, whether it's a parent, whether it's a coach, whether it's a counselor, whether it's a teacher, whether it's a pastor or a youth pastor, that you feel confident you can have a conversation with. So I never leave them there. I always put them with an adult who can handle it. Usually it's a counselor on staff at a school. I don't try to get into the weeds with everyone. There's just not enough time in the day. But I try my best to, and we always do, put them with an adult. Because as I share with them, I understand talking to your teenage friends are great, but they're as clueless as you are. They don't have the capacity to fix this. These are heavy adult situations, and you need people who really are trained, educated, and really called to do this in life. Yeah. So that's how we deal with it.
I could see telling your friend, and they're like, dude, now what? Yep. Okay, before we go, this has been so wonderful. You've given us how to find your book, how to get to your webpage. What is it that you really want us to know?
Oh, it's that simple. That you were created on purpose, with purpose, and for purpose, and because you're breathing, irrespective of what has happened in your life, you matter.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Great being with you.
If you love this podcast, here's a big ask. Will you share with your friends and family, subscribe, give us a review, and a 5-star rating so that others looking to reinvent their lives will be able to get the help they're looking for? Thank you in advance.